Hi, I'm Janelle, 31, and the day my parents unplugged my baby's apnea monitor to charge my brother's gaming laptop was the day I realized they could never be trusted with her life again. They thought they were just borrowing an outlet. But for 43 minutes, my daughter could have died in her crib. And all because Evan, the golden child, needed to prep a PowerPoint. Let me walk you through exactly how my trust broke, and why it's never coming back. Lily's diagnosis came 4 days after she was born. We were changing her diaper at home when it happened. 1 second she was gurgling, the next she went completely still. Her lips turned blue. My husband Nathan, who's a firefighter with EMT certification, was the first to react. I froze. It's the most helpless I've ever felt in my life. That was the first time. The hospital called it infant apnea. Her brain occasionally forgot to remind her lungs to breathe. It wasn't just rare, it was unpredictable and terrifying. We spent 7 days in the NICU watching her chest rise and fall, flinching every time the monitor beeped. The doctors gave us training. We learned infant CPR. We came home with a specialized apnea monitor, not some baby camera from Target. This was prescribed medical equipment that could literally save her life. It stays plugged in. Always. No exceptions. My parents knew this. They'd seen the alert system in action. They'd heard the alarms. They'd sat with Lily in our house while I napped, watching the blinking green light that meant she was breathing, alive, safe. And for the first few months they helped. They really did. Mom would rock Lily while humming old Beatles songs, proud as anything to be a grandma. Dad would peek in every few minutes, Tom Clancy novel in hand, pretending not to be emotional. I almost started to believe we could do this together. Then Evan got evicted. Apparently, his roommates had gotten fed up after months of him not paying rent. He'd used the money on gaming equipment for a game he swore was going to blow up on Steam. My parents took him in without hesitation. Within days, their house looked like a Twitch streamer studio, RGB lights everywhere, 3 monitors in the dining room, and "Do not disturb" signs taped to the fridge during his creative hours. And just like that, I wasn't the priority anymore. They'd cancel last minute. Evan needs the car, Evan's sleeping in, Evan has a big pitch tonight. Meanwhile, I was running on 3 hours of sleep, holding a baby who might stop breathing in the middle of a nap. Then came that Friday. Nathan was covering a 48-hour shift at the fire station. Another firefighter had a family emergency. I hadn't slept in 2 days, Lily had been having irregular episodes, and the monitor had gone off 3 separate times. Not full-blown emergencies, but enough to keep my heart pounding constantly. I called my parents, barely able to stand. "Please," I said, "just come over for a few hours so I can sleep. I'm not okay." There was a pause. Then Mom said, "Sweetie, Evan has a huge investor meeting today. He needs the house quiet to practice." I stood there in the kitchen, baby monitor blinking green behind me, hands shaking from exhaustion. And all I could think was, what if this is the moment I fall asleep and she stops breathing? I pushed harder. I begged. They finally agreed to come, but only for 4 hours. They were taking Evan to Cheesecake Factory afterward to celebrate closing his pitch. They arrived just before noon. Mom with a giant iced coffee, Dad carrying Evan's laptop bag like it was the nuclear codes. "We're dropping this at his friend's later," Dad explained. I didn't even argue. I walked them to the nursery, showed them the monitor, green light, steady signal, alarm armed. I repeated the rules like I always did: do not unplug this monitor. It's medical equipment. If the alarm goes off, check her immediately. Call me if there's anything. Mom barely looked up from her phone. I collapsed in bed. Set an alarm for 2 hours. Gone before my head hit the pillow. And I would have slept through the entire nightmare if Nathan hadn't burst into our bedroom in full firefighter uniform, panic on his face. "The monitor's offline," he said. I shot out of bed so fast I nearly tripped over the blanket. "What do you mean the monitor's offline?" Nathan was already pulling up the app on his phone. "I've been checking from the station. It disconnected 43 minutes ago." My throat dried up. I sprinted past him, down the hallway, straight to Lily's room. and what I saw made me want to scream. She was asleep, peaceful, tiny, perfect. But the monitor next to her crib was dark. No blinking light. No sound. Dead. My parents? Sitting on the couch in the living room like they were at a spa. HGTV on full blast. Iced tea in hand. Not a care in the world. I couldn't even process the fury that surged up through my chest. Where's the baby monitor plugged in? I asked, my voice thin with panic. Mom glanced up like I just asked her what was for dinner. Oh, that? We needed the outlet for Evan's laptop. I blinked. You what? He had to charge it, Dad added. Big presentation, remember? And the other outlets in there weren't working properly. Nathan was already kneeling beside the crib, checking Lily's breathing, her skin tone, her responsiveness. He looked up and gave a small nod. She's okay, he said, barely audible. But if she'd stopped breathing, we wouldn't have known. Don't overreact, Mom said, waving a hand like I was being dramatic. We were right here. 15 feet away. You can't hear apnea. I snapped. That's why we use a monitor. It alarms if she stops breathing, that's the point. She's fine. Mom insisted. You're always so anxious. It's not healthy. You need to relax. I stared at her like she was a stranger. Like I hadn't spent months explaining this condition to her. Like I hadn't printed out pamphlets. Like Nathan hadn't demonstrated the alert sounds in this exact room. Nathan plugged the monitor back in. The green light came on. It beeped. Back to life. Back to safe. But that 43-minute gap? It sat in my stomach like poison. Get out, Nathan said, his voice steady and low, the way I'd only heard him talk on emergency calls. What? Dad frowned. You put our daughter's life in danger for a laptop. You were told not to touch that monitor. And you did it anyway. We were doing you a favor by coming over. Mom huffed, standing up. This is the thanks we get? No, I said, my voice like ice. The thanks you get is that my daughter is still alive, despite you. They left in a storm of indignation, muttering about how ungrateful we were. I didn't care. I locked the door behind them and sat on the nursery floor, sobbing so hard I thought I might throw up. Later that night I called them. Not to scream. Not to beg. But to make one thing clear. Lily could have died, I said. Dad's voice was cold. You're being dramatic. I'm a pediatric nurse. Nathan's a firefighter. We told you this was life-threatening. You chose not to believe us. You chose Evan's laptop over Lily's life. You're twisting things, he said. No, I replied. You made your priorities clear. And that choice has consequences. I hung up. Then I blocked their numbers. Nathan and I agreed. They'd never be allowed unsupervised near Lily again. We didn't care how mad they got. We didn't care what the family thought. Because next time? We might not get lucky. The fallout hit fast and ugly. By Monday, half my extended family had heard. My Aunt Veronica called first, Mom's sister, the unofficial family diplomat. They're devastated, she said. They just want to apologize. No, I said flatly. They want access. That's not the same as remorse. Veronica hesitated. Janelle, they didn't know how serious it was. They did, I said, my voice calm, but ice cold. I'm a pediatric nurse. Nathan's an EMT. We explained everything. Repeatedly. They attended Lily's appointment with her pulmonologist. They nodded. They asked questions. And then they unplugged the one thing keeping her alive for a laptop. She went quiet. Okay, she said finally. Okay. I just wanted to hear your side. But the others weren't so neutral. Cousins messaged me saying I was overreacting. An uncle posted something vague on Facebook about modern parents being too dramatic. And my mother? She posted a passive-aggressive photo of an empty crib with the caption, "Missing our precious girl. Praying for reconciliation." Reconciliation. As if this was a minor spat. As if I hadn't sprinted down the hall thinking I might find my daughter blue and still. I made a decision right then. I was going to tell the truth. All of it. I posted. My parents unplugged my daughter's prescribed apnea monitor, medical equipment that alerts us if she stops breathing, so my brother could charge his gaming laptop. They were told never to unplug it. They did it anyway. Lily was unmonitored for 43 minutes. She could have died. We will not be resuming contact with anyone who minimizes this or prioritizes convenience over her life. I disabled comments. It stayed up for 90 minutes before Facebook removed it for family harassment. But that was all it needed. Screenshots spread like wildfire. The tone shifted. Suddenly, people were calling me, apologizing. Even cousins who'd previously told me to let it go now messaged privately. I had no idea it was that serious. One of them even sent me a screenshot of my mom's group chat. She'd been telling people Lily just had a mild breathing issue, and that I'd gone full meltdown because I was too tired to think clearly. Too tired? I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 7 months. I'd kept my baby alive with vigilance and caffeine and sheer, bone-deep fear. And they had the nerve to frame my panic as hormonal? Nathan was livid. He started forwarding the screenshots to anyone who dared to question our response. His mom, Caroline, called mine directly and said, "You're lucky Lily's alive. If you ever come near my granddaughter again, I will have a restraining order filed so fast your head spins." And then Evan called. "Janelle," he said in that lazy, bored voice he always uses, "you need to stop turning the whole family against Mom and Dad." I didn't respond. He went on. "They're heartbroken. And Mom says you're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just a plug." "Did you know what that monitor was for?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "Something about breathing, right?" "She has apnea, Evan. The monitor alerts us when she stops breathing. It's not a fancy baby cam. It's medical equipment." "Well, I didn't know they unplugged anything. You told them you needed a charger. And they jumped to unplug life support because your creative flow couldn't wait. You're blaming me for that?" "I'm blaming all of you for treating your convenience like it mattered more than her life." He didn't reply. Then came the text later. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I didn't know." I stared at it for a long time. And then I deleted it. Because sorry doesn't restart a baby's lungs. Sorry doesn't undo 43 minutes of silent risk. And sorry doesn't get you access to my child again. Not ever. The silence from my parents didn't last long. By week 2, they were escalating, from guilt trips to full-on ambushes. First, they sent a box of pastel baby clothes and plush toys addressed to Our Little Miracle. I didn't even open it. Just marked it. Returned to sender. And dropped it off at the post office with shaking hands. Then came the door knocks. The first time, I was breastfeeding Lily in the living room. I saw Mom through the peephole, standing there with a homemade casserole and that performance smile she always used at church potlucks. I didn't open the door. She knocked for 10 minutes, then left it on the porch with a note taped to the lid. "Let's talk. We miss our girls." The second time, Nathan answered. "Leave," he said, stepping outside and shutting the door behind him. "We're done. We made a mistake." Dad insisted. "We've apologized. You've excused." Nathan corrected. "Not once have you said, 'We endangered Lily and we're sorry we prioritized the laptop.' You just keep trying to manipulate your way back in. We're family." Mom snapped. "That has to count for something." "Exactly," Nathan said. "And you should have acted like it when you had the chance." They left furious. But it didn't stop them from reaching out to Nathan's parents next. That blew up in their faces. Nathan's mom, Caroline, who's about as soft-spoken as a buzzsaw, called me immediately after hanging up on them. "Your parents tried to guilt me into mediating. I told them if they touched that monitor in my house, I'd have pressed charges myself." "Thank you," I whispered. "They're lucky you only blocked them," she said. "That's not just neglect. That's medical endangerment." She was right. I'd spoken to Lily's pulmonologist, Dr. Whitmore, at her next appointment, and told her what happened. Dr. Whitmore had gone pale. "They what?" she said, almost dropping her clipboard. She took down everything: time, duration, who was present. And then, without me even asking, she drafted a formal letter explaining, in exact medical terms, why unplugging the monitor had put Lily's life at risk. She mailed a copy directly to my parents. 3 days later, I got an email from Dad. Subject line: regarding that letter, we feel that the letter from Dr. Whitmore was unnecessary and humiliating. We already apologized and this feels like punishment. I didn't respond. Because here's the thing: guilt isn't punishment. It's a signal. A warning bell. If you feel shame after endangering someone's life, you're supposed to sit with it. Learn from it. Not try to scrub it away with baby onesies and forced apologies. But they still didn't get it. They didn't want accountability, they wanted access. And when that failed, they tried Facebook. Mom posted a grainy photo of Lily taken 2 months earlier, the last time she'd held her. Caption: Grandma misses you so much. One day, you'll understand how much we love you. My stomach turned. It was manipulative. Public. And worst of all, it wasn't hers to post. Nathan reported the photo for unauthorized use. I had it taken down. Then I posted a single sentence to my own account. You don't get to publicly miss a baby you privately endangered. That stayed up exactly 37 minutes before I took it down myself. Because I wasn't playing this game anymore. I wasn't going to fight for validation. I wasn't going to collect allies. I wasn't going to debate Lily's safety in comment threads with relatives who never even held her. This wasn't a feud. This was a boundary. And boundaries don't require agreement. Just enforcement. It was around that time that Evan moved out of my parents' house. No dramatic exit. No grand statement. Just gone. He got a new apartment in Southeast Portland, studio loft, exposed brick, $2,100 a month. And predictably, my parents helped with the deposit. I only found out because I saw them post pictures of his new creative space on Facebook. A ring light. A neon sign. A cake that said, "Leveling up." That's what they spent their emotional energy on. Not their granddaughter. Not the daughter whose trust they shattered. But Evan's return to solo living. At first, I thought maybe they were finally moving on, redirecting their focus back to their golden child. But I was wrong. Because now, with Evan out of the house and no one left to dote on, their attention turned back to Lily like a heat-seeking missile. It started with emails. Long, winding messages from Dad about reflection and wanting to rebuild. Mom's tone was more emotional. I still have Lily's first drawing on my fridge. She was 7 months old. She'd smeared applesauce on a napkin. Then came the real apology. A typed letter, signed by both of them. We made a terrible mistake. We should never have unplugged Lily's monitor. We should have told Evan to wait. We prioritized the wrong thing, and we're deeply sorry. We hope, in time, you'll find it in your heart to forgive us and allow us to be part of Lily's life again. It was closer. Closer than anything they'd said before. But still, it was transactional. Like they thought if they hit all the right phrases, we just reset the relationship. Like this was a customer service complaint they could resolve with a coupon code and a handwritten note. I showed it to Nathan. He read it once, then twice. Then said, "They're not apologizing because they finally get it. They're apologizing because they miss access." He was right. Because a few lines down, buried in the sentiment, was this: "We're willing to take any precautions necessary to regain your trust, scheduled visits, supervision, whatever you're comfortable with." It wasn't "have we earned your forgiveness?" It was "how do we get visitation?" Negotiation. Not accountability. And that's when it hit me, they still didn't believe anything bad would have happened. They didn't stay up at night like I did, hand on Lily's chest, praying she'd keep breathing. They didn't dream about walking into her nursery and finding her still. They didn't feel what I felt when Nathan came through that door that day, uniform still on, face ghost white, saying the monitor was offline. They couldn't understand. Because they never believed it was real to begin with. They believed I was anxious. They believed Nathan was overcautious. They believed it was just a baby monitor. But it wasn't. It was a lifeline. It was what stood between life and a silence we could never undo. So I sat down, opened a fresh email, and typed, "I appreciate your attempt to apologize. But I need you to understand something very clearly. This isn't about punishing you. It's not about being stubborn. It's about protecting my daughter. Lily is not a second chance. She is not an access pass. She is not a test of your growth. She is a person, with a medical condition, that requires vigilance and respect. You showed neither. When I'm no longer angry, when the adrenaline is gone and the panic has settled, I'm still left with one fact. You knew the risk. And you chose to gamble with her life anyway. That's not a thing we come back from." Then I hit send. Then I blocked them again. The weeks that followed were quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet in that eerie, post-storm kind of way. The kind where nothing moves, but you know something's coming. I'd gotten used to checking the front porch for unexpected gifts, listening for knocks, watching Facebook for cryptic quotes about family ties and unconditional love. But none came. Instead, I got silence. And at first, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe the message had finally landed. But no, my parents were just changing tactics. They couldn't reach me, so they started working around me. The first attempt came through Lily's pediatrician's office. They called to say my parents had left a voicemail, asking for medical updates on their granddaughter. The receptionist was polite but confused. "Do they have medical custody?" she asked. "No," I said. "They have a history of endangering her. Please add a note that they're not to be given any information." Then came the second attempt, at Nathan's station. Someone had called pretending to be his mother-in-law, asking to verify his schedule, claiming there was a family emergency. Nathan's lieutenant flagged it. Nathan confronted his mom. Caroline swore it wasn't her. It was my mom. She admitted it in a group email later that day. "I was just trying to find a way to see Lily. You've left us no other choice." No other choice? They unplugged a breathing monitor, and we were the ones cutting them off. It was mind-bending. And yet, so familiar. This had always been the dynamic. My parents did something reckless, minimized it, then painted my boundaries as punishment. When I was a kid, they forgot to pick me up from choir practice for 3 hours and told me I was being dramatic when I cried. When Evan totaled his first car and blamed me for stressing him out, they made me apologize for escalating tension. And now they were doing it again. Only this time, it wasn't my feelings at stake. It was Lily's life. So I decided to do something I never had before. I went public. Not dramatic public. Just truth public. I posted on a private parenting forum I moderate, a group for medical parents, caregivers with chronically ill or medically fragile children. I wrote, "Has anyone else had to cut off family due to medical safety boundaries? My parents unplugged my infant daughter's apnea monitor, prescribed equipment, to charge my brother's gaming laptop. She was unmonitored for 43 minutes. They've apologized but continue to frame it as a mistake we're overreacting to. Am I wrong for going no contact?" I expected a handful of comments. Instead, it blew up. Hundreds of parents replied. Hundreds. And every single one of them said the same thing. You are not overreacting. You are protecting your child. Some shared their own stories, grandparents who ignored food allergies, uncles who mocked autism diagnoses, siblings who dismissed seizure risks. I read through every comment with tears in my eyes. One mother wrote, "They don't have to believe it's serious. They just have to follow the rules. If they can't, they're not safe." That line hit me like a brick. They don't have to believe it's serious. They just have to act like it is. That was it. That was the difference between family and safe family. It wasn't about shared blood. It was about shared respect. And my parents had shown me, repeatedly, that their respect had limits. Evan's laptop was within them. Lily's life was not. A month after the incident, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to since college, Julia Davenport. She was the lawyer who used to sit 2 rows behind me in nursing ethics, back when I was sleep-deprived, 23, and eating vending machine trail mix for dinner. I hadn't even known she followed me on Facebook. But apparently, she'd seen the now-deleted posts, screenshots and all. Her message read, "Hey Janelle. I saw what happened. I'm so sorry. If you ever need legal advice about medical guardianship or restraining orders, let me know. No charge." I stared at that message for a full 10 minutes. Because here's the truth, I had been wondering. Wondering if we were overreacting. Wondering if maybe, just maybe, it really was a misunderstanding. But this wasn't just about an unplugged monitor anymore. This was about the ongoing campaign to reframe our reaction as hysteria, our boundaries as cruelty, our consequences as drama. I hadn't answered their emails. I hadn't opened the door. And now, after a full month of silence, a new card showed up in the mailbox. It was handwritten. Blue ink on stiff, white stationery with embossed silver edges. My mom's handwriting unmistakable. "Dear Janelle, this will be my last attempt to reach you. I know you're hurting. I know you're angry. But surely you don't believe that we would ever do anything to harm Lily. We made a mistake, but we are human. And humans deserve forgiveness. You say this is about safety. I say this is about control. You've always wanted to control every little thing, and now you're using Lily's condition as a weapon to push us away. We're her grandparents. That doesn't just go away. One day, she'll ask why we're not in her life. And I hope you're ready to explain that you chose this. Love. Mom." I didn't show it to Nathan right away. I just sat with it. Let it sit on the counter like a dead bird I didn't know how to clean up. Because that line, "You're using Lily's condition as a weapon," wasn't just tone deaf. It was nuclear. It was my mother telling me, in so many words, that she didn't believe this was about health. She believed it was about me. My control issues. My supposed need for power. Never mind the doctor's letter. Never mind the EMT husband. Never mind the literal machine whose job it was to keep my baby alive. No. This was about me being dramatic. I showed it to Nathan that night after Lily had gone to bed. He read it in silence. Then, very carefully, he folded it back up, placed it in a Ziploc bag, and slid it into the file marked "Custody documents, Lily." I looked at him, confused. Why custody documents? He didn't look up. Because this proves they don't believe her condition is real. If anything ever happens, if they ever try to get legal visitation, we're going to need proof. I swallowed hard. He wasn't wrong. We'd been avoiding that word, court. It felt dramatic. Ugly. But people like my parents, who refused to admit fault, who tried to twist the story, who believed love was entitlement, those were the people who sued for grandparent rights. Who showed up with crocodile tears and, "I just want to know her," while denying the one act that nearly took her. I didn't want to live in fear. But I also wasn't going to be caught unprepared. So we got ready. We met with Julia. We made copies of everything, the app history showing the monitor's offline time, the doctor's letter, screenshots of texts and posts, even the audio file from our front door camera where Mom said. We didn't realize it was that important. We submitted it all to our pediatrician's file and had Lily's medical record updated to explicitly list my parents as non-approved caregivers. Julia helped us draft a notice of no contact letter. It wasn't a restraining order, but it was formal, something admissible if this escalated. And then we mailed it. Certified. Signature required. That was Friday. By Monday morning, the calls started. Blocked numbers. Unknown callers. Emails from aliases I didn't recognize. One even claimed to be from a concerned neighbor, who thought we were withholding love from elderly grandparents. It was them. Of course it was. That same day, Nathan's dad called. Calm, measured. They called me. He said. Said you'd legally threatened them? Asked me to reason with you. Nathan asked what he said in return. Caroline's husband just chuckled. I said if I were in their position, I'd consider myself lucky to still be on the outside of a courtroom. We laughed a little. But it didn't feel victorious. It felt hollow. Because at the end of the day, I didn't want to live like this. I didn't want to police the mailbox, check the peephole, worry about what Facebook post would be taken as evidence of alienation. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to raise my daughter without fear. But here's what I kept coming back to. I don't get to relax. Because Lily doesn't get to forget how to breathe. Not for a moment. So we did what we had to. We switched to a dual power source monitor, one that ran on backup battery for 24 hours even if it got unplugged. Nathan installed a smart outlet with tamper alerts. We put a motion sensor in her nursery so we'd know if anyone entered. Not because we were paranoid, but because we were prepared. And one night, after all the upgrades were installed, I sat in the glider next to Lily's crib and just watched her breathe. In. Out. In. Out. Tiny ribs rising under the lavender onesie. Her eyelids fluttering in dream sleep. The green light on the monitor glowing softly beside her. Safe. Because we made her safe. Not with luck. Not with prayer. But with vigilance, evidence, and boundary lines as solid as concrete. She stirred a little. Let out a soft sigh. I reached over and gently rubbed her back until she settled. Nathan came in with 2 mugs of tea. She okay? He asked. She's perfect, I said. And perfectly monitored. We clinked mugs. And sat in that nursery, sipping lukewarm tea, bathed in monitor light, knowing we'd done what we had to do. For her. 6 months have passed. Lily turned 1 last week. We threw a party in our backyard, nothing big, just close friends, a few neighbors, and Nathan's parents. Lily wore a tiny yellow dress with sunflowers on it. We gave her a mini cake and let her go to town. Frosting in her curls, fists full of sponge, face smeared with sugar and joy. She laughed so hard she hiccuped. That sound, her laugh, has become my favorite noise in the world. And that monitor? Still there. Still blinking. Still the reason I can sleep at night. Not once during that entire afternoon did I think about my parents. Not when Lily opened her presents. Not when Nathan made his terrible dad jokes during the candle lighting. Not even when Caroline, my mother-in-law in all but paperwork, raised a toast and called Lily the bravest little breathing warrior I know. It wasn't until later, after everyone had left and the dishes were soaking, that I saw it, an envelope taped to our front door. No postage. No name on the front. Just taped, like a note from a ghost. I brought it inside. Nathan took one look and said, "You don't have to open that." I knew I didn't. But I did anyway. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My father's handwriting this time. Janelle. We watched the party from across the street. We parked a few houses down. We just wanted to see her. She looks healthy. Happy. You and Nathan have done a good job. We know we're not welcome. We know we broke something we can't fix. This isn't another attempt to be let back in. We just wanted to say, we're sorry. Truly. And we'll stay away. We just needed to see her. One more time. Dad. I read it twice. Then I folded it up and placed it in the drawer next to all the others, emails, cards, notes that had stacked up like sediment over the year. Apologies too late, too conditional, too empty. This one was different. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I finally understood something. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. I may forgive one day. Not for them, but for me. So I can move forward without bitterness lodged like shrapnel in my chest. So I can tell Lily, when she's old enough to ask, that I did everything to keep her safe, even when it was hard. Even when it meant standing alone. Because that's what parents do. They protect. Even from family. Even from the people who raised them. Even from the ones who say, "You're overreacting," as they unplug the cord keeping your baby alive. That monitor is still there. That green light still blinks. And every time I see it, I remember. Luck runs out. Boundaries don't. Lily is safe. And that's all that matters.